good. Unfortunately, probably not everybody will get whatever announcement we were able to put out, unless I was able to say it from the previous session we were in, but that seems to have been taken over by Mara. So I'll wait for a few minutes and see who else shows up here. Noticing names from the Thanksgiving retreat, Stephen Thompson. Karina, okay. Well, it looks like everybody got the I think we decided that could have been karma for all the prank phone calls I made when I was a kid. So maybe we should just get started, and then as people join, if and when people join, okay, it looks like almost everybody was getting the new updated codes. Very good, and we won't let that little hiccup stop our Upāsikā day, our study of Dhamma Vinaya and the path to liberation. And we'll start just by, so we'll start with the homage to Buddha Dhamma Sangha and the taking of the 5 precepts. Okay, there's something here that says iPhone entered in the waiting room. But I don't know whether I should admit that or not. View.
So I asked that everybody would turn on their video, unless, I see her style cannot, like record, then that's fine. But otherwise, we have a window, like just not wall. So I think we're good. Everybody's kind of, thank you as I see.
just mute us then. The floor mic's on, they'll usually get feedback.
I can turn the floor mic off. Okay, can you do?
Somebody's just named iPhone, should we not admit them?
Up to you, Ajahn.
Can you message the person, Ajahn?
Yeah.
We could try and ask them to identify themselves.
Okay. I sent a message to them to identify themselves. Okay. Okay, we could go with the floor mic to begin. Okay, so yeah, we'll begin with the taking of the 5 precepts. And for anybody who has access to a chanting book, that's on page 126 of volume 1.
Should I try that now, Ajahn?
Yeah. Please, Amy, yes, yeah, you can begin the request.
Oh, share screen? Okay, I'm just gonna share screen and just... Okay. Mayam Bante Tisarena Saka Pancha Silani Yachama Dudiyampi Mayam Bante Tisarena Saka Pancha Silani Yachama Tatiyampi Mayam Bante Tisarena Saka Pancha Silani Yachama.
Okay, and maybe if you could remain unmuted and repeat after me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Sangham saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi Sangham saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi Sangham saraṇaṃ
Ti
gacchāmi.
sarana kamanang nititaṃ.
Ayam Bante.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
Kame sumichachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
Sura meraya maja pamadatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Sura maraya maja pamadatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drinks and drugs which lead to carelessness.
Imani panchasika padani silena sugating yanti silena boga sampada silena nibuting yanti tasama silang visota ye.
Satu, satu, satu.
And at this point, I'll pass it over to Luang Por. We'll begin with some guided meditation, and we'll go for. We started a bit late, so I'll just sort of feel it out. Ring the bell at some point. At which point we'll start with our study session, our Sutra readings.
Okay, so welcome everybody. We are Upāsikā Day, and the theme is Kaya Kata Sati, and that is mindfulness of the body. So we began this Upāsikā Day with a bit of a glitch, and the uncertainty manifested itself, and just the reality of the world, and I had only read about that there was such a thing as Zoom bombing, but now I have direct knowledge of it. So that's and that's, in terms of that's like hearing about meditation, hearing about mindfulness, and nice information, nice kind of a nice idea, and but mindfulness of the body is what actually makes it much more real, gives you a direct experience. So that's the so we take the theme of today and of what with the what began as an intrusion. You can always turn things around if you don't get flustered. The mind can go and run with it and make a story out of it, or have a reaction to it, and it can make it into a problem. But and that's exactly what, say, mindfulness of the body is giving tools to be able to bring clarity, attention, and knowledge into this present moment in a very direct way, a kind of experiential way, which is of course, that's the theme of the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha himself was extremely repetitive in saying, I teach only two things: dukkha and the cessation of dukkha, that kind of dissatisfaction and the ending of dissatisfaction, so bringing it back to the experience. One of the, I've certainly found one of the most direct and immediate and efficient ways to bring this into an experiential field is through mindfulness of the body. And because the way the mind works, it's constantly reacting, or even if it's responding, it's still responding through, this is pleasant, this is unpleasant, this is wanted, this is unwanted, and where we tend to react, respond from that place, and that's a mental response. But by bringing attention to the body itself, then we've got something a bit more tangible and something that grounds us and gives an opportunity to kind of settle, so that we're not just, say, reacting, responding out of some kind of impulse or kind of a momentum of either desire or aversion. So that because when we pay attention to the body, one of the things, of course, one can start to feel and begin to get more sense of what our emotions and emotional reactions are, or what the mind's starting to run with, what that thing, we're getting clues to what the underlying kind of feeling motivation is. So that in that way we can start to be a bit more clear in how we respond, and turning to the body is the same of just that. Okay, something is amiss. Something is going wrong, quote unquote wrong. It's just that. Okay, the meeting isn't going as we had planned it. But what do I feel? Can I just relax into that and establish mindfulness? And because that's an anchor, a point of experience that we can establish attention and awareness, and gathering our awareness at a point gives us a clear foundation for moving forward in a skillful way. And on a certain level, it seems really basic, very fundamental, and to a certain level it is, but it's so important because what we begin with, how we start doing something out of irritation and aversion, that it's going to condition a certain result. But doing something out, as opposed to doing something out of loving kindness or compassion, doing something out of kind of greed or kind of a strong desire, is very different than beginning something from a place of kind of generosity and kind of open-handed. That it's a very different beginning. So that having the body as a kind of a sounding board or a touchstone to help one establish just mindfulness and discernment, truth discerning awareness in this present moment. That is a huge gift to oneself. So that using mindfulness of the body. So I thought we would maybe, well, I mean, it's, the schedule has us doing a guided meditation. So I think taking some time to do a guided meditation using the body and awareness of the body to help begin our session with mindfulness, so that beginning with the fundamental activity of the body, kind of almost a primal activity of body, is breathing. So that as we sit here, just making sure that you're comfortable, either sitting on the floor, sitting on a chair, and having a certain, when I say comfortable, but also mean putting so that one is sitting upright. So there's a certain upright alertness to one's sitting, but it's comfortable in the sense that it's nice and balanced. And then feeling the kind of the trunk of the body. And then feeling the sensation of the breath as we breathe in. Where do we experience the breath? And there's no right or wrong way, but it's just taking note. How do I experience the breath? Do I experience is it in the chest? Is it in the abdomen? And because all of that is affected as we breathe in, just feeling the sensation of the breath coming into the body, and wherever, it's sort of the whole breath body, or the whole body itself. And then breathing out. And there's no need to regulate it or try to make it follow a particular pattern or rhythm. You're going to breathe in and breathe out anyway. So there is no need to control it. There is no need to force it to conform to some idea that you might have, but just allowing the breath to come in to the body and then letting the breath release. And there's something very soothing about that. It's so fundamental to the human condition. For all of our complexity as human beings, of our own inner complexity, our moods, our views and opinions, our ideas and our thoughts, our complexity of our relationships with other people, the world around us. In the end, it's just one in-breath and one out-breath. So breathing in, attentive, alert, just knowing the breath as it comes in. As one breathes out, just knowing that sensation, the feeling, the experience of the breath exiting the body, releasing. And there's something extremely soothing about coming back to that something that primal, that fundamental to our existence. And because as with any meditation or any aspect of our human life, of course, there can be many complexities, lots of detail that could be added, but just getting familiar with the fundamental, getting to be content with something quite straightforward, quite simple. And that can be a real challenge sometimes. So that mindfulness of the body, of course, it's quite extensive in the, as how the Buddha himself taught it, as various teachers have passed on. There's all sorts of exercises and meditations and contemplations. But to be able to just come back to that simple rhythm of the breath. It's like giving yourself a refuge to return to. It's a place of renewal. And it's so important for us to have a place of renewal, to have, it's like having a safe place of reconnection with things that are really, are really a refuge. You think of the beginning, the ceremony of taking refuges and precepts. That's something that Buddhists have been doing for 2,600 years, and it is still a refuge. It's still a place of safety and a place of connection to what is truly wholesome, truly skillful. So using the breath, paying attention to the posture of the body. There is the breath, but the breath is, and you don't have to be focusing too tightly, trying to find, a single point where you can get focused and experience one-pointed concentration. That's not essential. I think one of the things that's important is being able to be comfortable in the posture and with that rhythm of the breath coming in and going out. Connecting with in terms of posture, without straining, without forcing, having a certain uprightness to one's posture. That's actually the most relaxing way to sit, is when there's a nice balance. The head is on top of the shoulders, on top of the neck, and one tends to tilt forward a little bit, but not too much, and not leaning to the left, not leaning to the right. There's a balance and poise that we are manifesting in the body, but it's also helps to condition that kind of balance and poise within the mind itself, within the heart itself, say within awareness itself. So just that sense of balance of the head on top of the neck, the shoulders kind of nicely balanced, and it doesn't. Each of us are going to experience it a bit differently, in a balanced way. Feel the shoulders, because we can slump forward when the shoulders, and then the breath can be a bit constricted that way. Then holding the body up when one is slumped becomes tiring. But if it's just opening the chest, feeling the shoulders nice and balanced, not pulled back so that it tightens the chest and the neck, but it's just again the sense of balance and poise that one shoulders, the back. There's an uprightness and balance that is comfortable. One can be at ease with that balance. So it's like tuning into the body, so that one is using the body as a reminder of a balancing, relaxing, settling. But then the mind will follow suit as well, balancing, settling, paying attention to like the lower back and the abdomen. Again, not tightening, not forcing, getting a sense of balance again. Cushions to help us give a little bit of lift, so that the lower back is settling into that kind of like the pelvic girdle, and then the legs and thighs moving down and touching the one sitting mat. There's that balance and poise that we're forming with our body, and it's just, one is sort of moving attention through the body, but then it's like each, there's an attunement. You're not having to force attention or try to force the mind to be concentrated on the breath, but then you're starting to realize with that balancing with the different areas of the body, the thing that is always happening is breathing in and breathing out. And then just breathing in a long breath, one nose, one breathes in a long breath. Breathing out a long breath, one nose, one breathes out a long breath. Sometimes the breath might be a bit short, could be a bit shallow. So just breathing in short, one nose. Breathing in short. Breathing out short, one nose. Breathing out short. It's not that there's something right or wrong. It is just using that bodily posture, bodily processes as a foundation for mindfulness. Mindfulness of the body. Kaya kata sati. So mindfulness of the body. So with mindfulness of the body as a foundation, we're able to tune into the sense of relaxing, softening, balancing, establishing a poise that is comfortable, and then adjusting it sometimes. It doesn't magically become balanced and poised. Sometimes one needs to give a bit of adjustment, relax, soften, and then taking an interest in that experience of the body, of the breath. Taking mindfulness of the body. Posture is one of the, because mindfulness of the breath is one of the first things the Buddha speaks about with mindfulness of the body. Mindfulness of posture is another aspect that the Buddha says. It's like incorporating those. And then having that touchstone where one is developing a continuity of attention, a continuity of mindfulness, that clarity naturally starts to build. Mind is going to wander a bit, the mind is going to have thoughts. You don't need to worry about that. But it's like reminding oneself, which is, of course, that's another primary definition of sati, of mindfulness, is recollection, of remembering. Just remembering to be present. Remembering to be present for this experience. So, breathing in, breathing out. One can always, of course, in northeast of Thailand, one of the most common meditation tools is the Buddho on the in-breath, Bud. on the out breath. Do, bud, ho, bud, ho. And it's a reminder to stay with the simplicity of the breath, the simplicity of the knowing. Because that the word Buddho, say literally, means knowing, awake, bright, in terms of bright, radiant. Those are qualities that we can incorporate. So just this kind of simplicity, and it forms a container for us to be able to investigate, to recognize, to understand more clearly. This human experience, this thing we call a body and a mind. And we get to learn how to hold it skillfully so that we're responding with awareness, responding with Dhamma. And one time Ajahn Chah was asked, what is Dhamma? And it's a difficult word to translate because he said it's that which is kind of both right and true, ถูกต้อง. So it's like something that is, this is right, it's true, it's the way it is. It's like this. And on a certain level, we think about it, doesn't actually mean anything. But we're not trying to intellectually figure it out. We're trying to experience directly. We're trying to see things clearly. So that, that's what this mindfulness of the body is, one of your fundamental tools in facilitating this clear seeing. So as we sit comfortably, just paying attention to the posture, balance, poise, not forcing, not, collapsing, but not pushing. There's that kind of balance that's needed. And then allowing the rhythm of the breath, of the breathing, to just that simple arising and ceasing of the in-breath, breath coming in, the arising and ceasing of the out-breath, the breath going out. And that arising and that ceasing is that is a fundamental truth. All things which have the nature to arise have the nature to cease. And that is as we tune into that, as we clarify that, we come to a place of recognize, we can observe, we can watch, we cannot be shaken by whatever arises. It could be something we like, could be something we don't like, but we can be present for it. We can hold it within our experience of the body and our awareness. We don't have to tighten up around it. We don't have to try to push it away. We don't have to get into conflict with it. We return to it with awareness. And we can see it in its true nature. And we can adjust. It's like we began this Upāsikā day with a problem. Something unwanted appeared, and you just recognize it and adjust and adapt, and not get caught in being either flustered or upset or getting thrown off balance. There's this opportunity, both physically, mentally, emotionally, yet to respond with balance and poise. So the body is always a reminder of that possibility. So these are kind of approaches or perspectives that as we meditate, as we cultivate, as we develop our practice and our training, we can use mindfulness of the body to form and anchor a foundation for our practice, and it really, we can just sit quietly for a few minutes. I've been giving perspectives, but just to sit quietly for a few minutes and let that settle and get a feel for that. So we can shift from the first session. I'll pass it over to Ajahn Yaniko to continue.
So I was just going to start with just a few sutta readings. The first one is from the middle-length discourses, Majjhima Nikaya. And this is from the Kayagata Sati Sutta, Sutta 119, and I'm starting in verse 22. It's page 954, and so I just wanted to read out some of the benefits of mindfulness of the body. The Buddha starts with some analogies talking about how Mara can or cannot get in based on not cultivating or cultivating mindfulness of the body, and then he goes into 10 benefits of mindfulness of the body. Bhikkhus, anyone who has developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body has included within himself whatever wholesome states there are that partake of true knowledge. Just as anyone who has extended his mind over the great ocean has included within it whatever streams there are that flow into the ocean, so too anyone who has developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body has included within himself whatever wholesome states there are that partake of true knowledge. Bhikkhus, when anyone has not developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, Mara finds an opportunity and a support in him. Suppose a man were to throw a heavy stone ball upon a mound of wet clay. What do you think, bhikkhus? Would that heavy ball find entry into that mound of wet clay? Yes, Venerable Sir. So too, bhikkhus, when anyone has not developed for a dry, sapless piece of wood, and a man came with an upper fire stick, thinking, I shall light a fire, I shall produce heat. What do you think, bhikkhus? Could the man light a fire and produce heat by rubbing the dry, sapless piece of wood with an upper fire stick? Yes, Venerable Sir. So too, bhikkhus, when anyone has not developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, Mara finds an opportunity and a support in him. Suppose there were a hollow, empty water jug set out on a stand, and a man would come with a supply of water. What do you think, bhikkhus? Could the man pour the water into the jug? Yes, Venerable Sir. So too, bhikkhus, when anyone has not developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, Mara finds an opportunity and a support in him. Bhikkhus, when anyone has developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, Mara cannot find an opportunity or a support in him. Suppose a man were to throw a light ball of string at a door panel made entirely of heartwood. What do you think, bhikkhus? Would that light ball of string find entry through that door panel made entirely of heartwood? No, Venerable Sir. So too, bhikkhus, when anyone has developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, Mara cannot find an opportunity or a support in him. Suppose there were a could the man light a fire and produce heat by taking the upper fire stick and rubbing it against the wet, sappy piece of wood? No, Venerable Sir. So too, bhikkhus, when anyone has developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, Mara cannot find an opportunity or a support in him. Suppose, set out on a stand, there were a water jug full of water right up to the brim, so that crows could drink from it, and a man came with a supply of water. What do you think, bhikkhus? Could the man pour the water into the jug? No, Venerable Sir. So too, bhikkhus, when anyone has developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, Mara cannot find an opportunity or a support in him. Bhikkhus, when anyone has developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, then when he inclines his mind toward realizing any state that may be realized by direct knowledge, he attains the ability to witness any aspect therein, there being a suitable basis. Suppose, set out on a stand, there were a water jug of water, full of water, right up to the brim, so that the crows could drink from it. Whenever a strong man tips it, would water come out? Yes, Venerable Sir. So too, bhikkhus, when anyone has developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, then when he inclines his mind toward realizing any state that may be realized by direct knowledge, he attains the ability to witness any aspect therein, there being a suitable basis. Could drink from it. Whenever a strong man loosens the embankment, would water come out? Yes, Venerable Sir. So too, bhikkhus, when anyone has developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, he attains the ability to witness any aspect therein, there being a suitable basis. Suppose there were a chariot on even ground at the crossroads, harnessed to thoroughbreds, waiting with goad, lying ready, so that a skilled trainer, a charioteer of horses to be tamed, might mount it, and taking the reins in his left hand and the goad in his right hand, might drive out and back by any road whenever he likes. So too, bhikkhus, when anyone has developed and cultivated mindfulness of the body, he attains the ability to witness practiced, developed, cultivated, used as a vehicle, used as a basis, established, consolidated, and well undertaken. These 10 benefits may be expected. What 10? 1. One becomes a conqueror of discontent and delight, and discontent does not conquer oneself. One abides overcoming discontent whenever it arises. 2. One becomes a conqueror of fear and dread do not conquer oneself. One abides overcoming fear and dread whenever they arise. 3. One bears cold and heat, hunger and thirst, and contact with gadflies, mosquitoes, wind, the sun, and creeping things. One endures ill-spoken, unwelcome words, and arisen bodily feelings that are painful, racking, sharp, piercing, disagreeable, distressing, and menacing to life. 4. One obtains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind and provide a pleasant abiding here and now. 5. One wields the various kinds of supernormal power. One wields bodily mastery, even as far as the Brahma world. 6. With the divine ear element, which is purified and surpasses the human, one hears both kinds of sounds, the divine and the human, those that are far as well as near. 7. One as affected by lust, and so on. An unliberated mind is unliberated. 8. One recollects one's manifold past lives. 9. With the divine eye, one sees, which is purified and surpasses the human, one sees beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, and one understands how beings pass on according to their actions. 10. By realizing for oneself, with direct knowledge, one here and now enters upon and abides in the deliverance of mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints. Bhikkhus, when mindfulness of the body has been repeatedly practiced, developed, cultivated, used as a vehicle, used as a basis, established, consolidated, and well undertaken, these that's from the Sutta, and I'll go into some real-life practical application with Ajahn Chah. This is from the collected teachings of Ajahn Chah, and it's chapter 12, Why Are We Here? And I'll just see how the time goes, and I'll read for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll take a break after that. And this was given as Luang Por Chah was getting older. He wasn't yet infirm, or he was. This rains retreat. I don't have much strength. I'm not well. So I've come up this mountain here to get some fresh air. People come to visit, but I can't really receive them like I used to because my voice has just about had it. My breath is just about gone. You can count it a blessing that there is still this body sitting here for you all to see now. This is a blessing in itself. Soon you won't see it. The breath will be finished. The voice will be gone. They will fare in accordance with supporting factors like all compounded things. The Lord Buddha called it kaya wayang, the decline and dissolution of all conditioned phenomena. How do they decline? Consider a lump of ice. Originally it was simply water. People freeze it and it becomes ice. But it doesn't take long before it's melted. Take a big lump of ice, say as big as this table. After not many hours or minutes, all that's left is a puddle of water. This is called kaya wayang, the decline and dissolution of all compounded things. It's been this way for a long time now, ever since the beginning of time. When we are born, we bring this inherent nature into the world with us. We can't avoid it. At birth, we bring old age, sickness, and death along with us. So this is why the Buddha said, kaya wayang, the decline and dissolution of all compounded things. All of us sitting here in this hall now, monks, novices, laymen, and laywomen, are without exception lumps of deterioration. Right now, the lump is hard, just like the lump of ice. It starts out as water, becomes ice for a while, then melts again. Can you see this decline in yourself? Look at this body. It's aging every day. Hair is aging. Nails are aging. Everything is aging. You weren't like this before, were you? You were probably much smaller than this. Now you've grown up and matured. From now on, you will decline, following the way of nature. The body declines just like the lump of ice. Soon, just like the lump of ice, it's all gone. All bodies are composed of the four elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. A body is the confluence of earth, water, wind, and fire, which we proceed to call a person. Originally, it's hard to say what you could call it, but now we call it a person. We get infatuated with it, saying it's male, female, giving it names, Mr., Mrs., and so on, so that we can identify each other more easily. But actually, there isn't anybody there. There's earth, water, wind, and fire. When they come together in this known form, we call the result a person. Now, don't get excited over it. If you really look into it, there isn't anyone there. That which is solid in the body, the flesh, skin, bones, and so on, are called the earth element. Those aspects of the body which are liquid are the water element. The faculty of warmth in the body is the fire element, while the winds coursing through the body are the wind element. At Wat Pah Pong, we have a body which is neither male nor female. It's the skeleton hanging in the main hall. Looking at it, you don't get the feeling that it's a man or a woman. People ask each other whether it's a man or a woman, and all they can do is look blankly at each other. It's only a skeleton. All the skin and flesh are gone. People are ignorant of these things. Some go to Wat Pah Pong, into the main hall, see the skeletons, and then come running right out again. They can't bear to look. They're afraid of the skeleton. I figure these people have never seen themselves before. Because they are afraid of the skeleton, they don't reflect on the great value of a skeleton. To get to the monastery, they had to ride in a car or walk. If they didn't have bones, how would they be? Would they be able to walk about like that? But they ride their cars to Wat Pah Pong, go into the main hall, see the skeleton, and run straight back out again. They've never seen such a thing before. They're born with it, and yet they've never seen it. It's very fortunate that they have a chance to see it now. Maybe they go home and still can't sleep for 3 or 4 days, and yet they're sleeping with a skeleton. They get dressed with it, eat food with it, do everything with it, and yet they're scared of it. This shows how out of touch people are with themselves. How pitiful. They're always looking outwards, at trees, at other people, at external objects, saying, this one is big, that's small, that's short, that's long. They're so busy looking at other things. Ordinees must learn the 5 basic meditation themes: kesa, head hair; loma, body hair; nakha, nails; danta, teeth; tacho, skin. Some of the students and educated people snigger to themselves when they hear this part of the ordination ceremony. What's the Ajahn trying to teach us here? Teaching us about hair when we've had it for ages. He doesn't have to teach us about this. We know it already. Why bother teaching us something we already know? Dim people are like this. They think they can see the hair already. I tell them that when I say, see the hair, I mean to see it as it really is. See body hair as it really is. See nails, teeth, and skin as they really are. That's what I call seeing, not seeing in a superficial way. Nails, teeth, skin, what are they really like? Are they pretty? Are they clean? Do they have any real substance? Are they stable? No, there's nothing to them. They're not pretty, but we imagine them to be so. They're not substantial, but we imagine them to be so. Hair, nails, teeth, skin. People are really hooked on these things. The Buddha established these things as the basic themes for meditation. He taught us to know these things. They are transient, imperfect, and ownerless. They are not me or them. We are born with and deluded by these things. People sweat a lot, such as when a lot of people are working hard together. The smell is awful. We go back home and rub ourselves down with soap and water, and the smell abates somewhat. The fragrance of the soap replaces it. Rubbing soap on the body may make it seem fragrant, but actually the bad smell of the body is still there. It is just temporarily suppressed. When the smell of the soap is gone, the smell of the body comes back again. Now we tend to think these bodies are pretty, delightful, long-lasting, and strong. We tend to think that we will never age, get sick, or die. We are charmed and fooled by the body, and so we are ignorant of the true refuge within ourselves. The true place of refuge is the mind. The mind is our true refuge. This hall here may be pretty big, but it can't be a true refuge. Pigeons take shelter here, geckos take shelter here, lizards take shelter here. We may think the hall belongs to us, but it doesn't. We live here together with everything else. This is only a temporary shelter. Soon we must leave it. People take these shelters for refuge. It occurred to me that we could use an example for this hall that the woodpeckers believe this hall belongs to them. So we may think it belongs to us, but the woodpeckers think it belongs to them, so they peck the walls out and store acorns in them. So the Buddha said to find your refuge. That means to find your real heart. This heart is very important. People don't usually look at important things. They spend most of their time looking at unimportant things. For example, when they do the house cleaning, they may be bent on cleaning up the house, washing the dishes, and so on. They fail to see that their own hearts are not very clean. This is what I call taking a temporary shelter for a refuge. They beautify the house and home, but they don't think of beautifying their own hearts. They don't examine suffering. The heart is the important thing. The Buddha taught to find a refuge within your own heart. Atahi atano nato. Make yourself a refuge unto yourself. Who else can be your refuge? The true refuge is the heart, nothing else. You may try to depend on other things, but they aren't a sure thing. You can only really depend on other things if you already have a refuge within yourself. You must have your own refuge before you can depend on anything else, be it a teacher, family, friends, or relatives. So all of you, both lay people and homeless ones who have come to visit today, please consider this teaching. Ask yourselves, who am I? Why am I here? Ask yourselves, why was I born? Some people don't know. They want to be happy, but the suffering never stops. Rich or poor, young or old, they suffer just the same. It's all suffering. And why? Because they have no wisdom. The poor are unhappy because they don't have enough, and the rich are unhappy because they have too much to look after. In the past, as a young novice, I gave a Dhamma discourse. I talked about the happiness of wealth and possessions, having servants and so on. 100 male servants, 100 female servants, 100 elephants, 100 cows, 100 buffaloes, 100 of everything. The lay people really lapped it up. But can you imagine looking after 100 buffaloes, or 100 cows, 100 male and female servants? Can you imagine having to look after all that? Would that be fun? People don't consider this side of things. They have the desire to possess, to have the cows, the buffaloes, the servants, to have hundreds of them. But I say 50 buffaloes would be too much. Just twining the rope for all those brutes would be too much already. But people don't consider this. They only think of the pleasure of acquiring. They don't consider the trouble involved. If we don't have wisdom, everything around us will be a source of suffering. If we are wise, these things, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, will lead us out of suffering. Sleep. Or you can fall in love with others. Love is suffering too if you don't get what you want. Love and hate are both suffering because of desire. Wanting is suffering. Wanting not to have is suffering. Wanting to acquire things, even if you get them, it's still suffering because you're afraid you'll lose them. There's only suffering. How are you going to live with that? You may have a large, luxurious house, but if your heart isn't good, it never really works out as you expected. Therefore, you should all take a good look at yourselves. Why were we born? Do we ever really attain anything in this life? In the countryside here, people start planting rice right from childhood. When they reach 17 or 18, they rush off and get married, afraid they won't have enough time to make their fortunes. They start working from an early age, thinking they'll get rich that way. They plant rice until they're 70 or 80 or even 90 years old. I ask them, from the day you were born, you've been working. Now it's almost time to go. What are you going to take with you? They don't know what to say. All they can say is, beats me. We have a saying in these parts. Don't tarry picking berries along the way. Before you know it, night falls. Just because of this, beats me. They're neither here nor there, content with just a beats me, sitting among the branches of the berry tree, gorging themselves with berries. Beats me, beats me. When you're still young, you think that being single is not so good. You feel a bit lonely. So you find a partner to live with. Put two together and there's friction. Living alone is too quiet, but living with others, there's friction. So I'll leave it there with some that applied body contemplation, body mindfulness from Luang Por Chah, and we'll take about a 15-minute break so people can get up and stretch or think about think about this, and then when we come back, there will be another guided meditation for about half an hour, followed by Q&A after that. to have a drink. I was gonna come back here and have a drink. That's what I was.
Well, looks like it's water.
It's been about 3 weeks. It's coconut water,
Oh.
so it's kind of sticky.
Oh, okay.
Had a bit of a disaster.
Is it all clean? You need? Oh, okay.
I just spilled a full cup of coconut water all over my robe.
Okay. I'll clean up. Well, then just mark the spot.
No, it's clean now.
Okay.
I think nothing else spilled.
All right. You might want. There's carrot juice.
Nothing came out of this.
Yeah.
Fill.
Okay.
I could take this too.
Okay. Do you want some more coconut water?
I'm good. I think the carrot juice.
Okay.
Had a bit of a mishap. I have to change robes.
Hmm?
I had a bit of a mishap. I have to change robes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
afternoon of exploration of mindfulness of the body, Kayakata Sati, and we can take this opportunity to just settle again, body being a very appropriate basis for establishing mindfulness, using as a focus within the meditation. Instruction that I gave was around just getting familiar with the body, getting comfortable with the body, getting that sense of continuity of awareness and mindfulness. And that is essential in terms of meditation, in terms of practice. And whether that practice is for settling the mind and making it peaceful, or for contemplation and reflection, it does establishing that sense of an anchor of attention, awareness, mindfulness with the body as a basis is really important, helpful. We can also be using in terms of meditation, a contemplation, just that sense of the impermanence of the body, uncertainty of the body. As Ajahn Chah sort of saying, the image of the block of ice, and it's a it seems so substantial, diminishing, getting solid, melting. It's just this for insight, because what insight is for attachment in particular. It's like insight isn't just to collect information and knowledge and for getting into arguments about Dhamma with people. It's for really being able to relate the underlying the mind. The Buddha points to desire, that something that is as close to us as this body gives us an opportunity for relinquishment. Thinking and ditthi, that using the body, that mindfulness of the body, contemplation of the body, we grasp and pick up the whole body-mind complex in a burdensome way, in a way that keeps us suffering, keeps us discontent and dissatisfied. So to be just contemplating the body, and again, but it does need to have a solid anchor, just so that sense of coming back to the posture of the body, the sense of the body, a alertness to the rhythm of the body, the breath coming in, the breath going out, both the ease of the body, the discomfort of the body. Dis-ease of the body, that anicca, dukkha, anatta aspect of the body is with it doesn't take that much contemplation to recognize, oh, that's fundamental to its nature. That unsatisfactory aspect, the aspect of dis-ease, the aspect of a discontent. Like it's like just sitting in one posture. Inevitably, we can't. However ideal, we can't sit here and just be constantly mindful and absorbed in the body gets uncomfortable, and I mean, I was offered this extremely comfortable chair, but I can't sit in it all the time. I can't. I mean, it's even a comfortable chair. It's just as having it's my body that's there. They can't. You can't. A few weeks that I've actually been able to have an extended period of sitting on the floor, and it feels great. But I have to be cautious because of the. I had an operation. I guess that's 3 weeks ago now. So so far so good. But I need to be careful. It's just the nature of a body. So that and then even if I were in peak physical health, it would still end up being uncomfortable. So that's the dukkha aspect of the body, anatta, in the sense of not self. That which is impermanent, uncertain, of a nature to change, uncomfortable, unsatisfactory, fraught with dis-ease. It's really not worthy of God. This is me. Appropriate. So that sense of not self aspect, and another aspect of not self is there's no major control. One doesn't have the control to say, don't age, don't get sick, don't get uncomfortable, don't die. One just can't do that. It's just that's by its very nature. It's going to follow its own course. So then it's just and there's something really liberating to be able to see things in their true nature. It's not that is oppressive or is problematic. It's only problem our attachments and our clinging to it, that's when it becomes problematic. So then that gives us the doorway into seeing clearly. So this, as we sit and it's just the feeling of the body, posture of the body, just these fundamental elements of nature and our nature allows us to settle, allows us to have an anchor in awareness and a refuge in wisdom. So these are say that it's a basis for mindfulness. It's a basis for wisdom. It's also a basis for samadhi, for the mind, the heart, to become very steady and firm. Because as uncertain, unstable, uncomfortable as everything can be, that isn't what we need to, or necessarily need to draws attention to the soothing quality of the breath, of the body, of awareness that stands alert and awake, able to recognize and then turn attention to. It's like the classic description of of settling the mind. That's rooted in the body, and then is conducive to a kind of joy and pleasure. And then, they fill this very body with the pleasure and joy born of seclusion, or of a kind of seclusion, a withdrawal, stepping back from entanglement and following our likes and dislikes, proliferations, joys and sorrows of the world, obsession of our own views and opinions, but to take the ease and contentment that is possible, and then to take it and intern. And the image that the Buddha gives is of in the time of the Buddha, like a bathman or bathman's apprentice that would take a powdered soap. They use a clay soap, maybe one could use something that might be a bit more familiar. Is just maybe like doing bread, that take that flour with the water, the moisture, so that it you don't just sort of dump a whole bucket of water on it and then it just washes away. Bit by bit, one adds it can be a bit dry at first, but then one keeps kneading it in. It becomes, the consistency starts to to permeate and pervade, suffuse and fill that whole, and it becomes something that's suitable. So it's just, and for doing that with our experience of the body, it's taking our experience of the breath, of being aware, of present, taking the kind of pleasant feeling of balance and poise, both physically and mentally, and allowing it to move throughout the whole body, not in an erratic, kind of jerky, controlled, forcing. It's more like just a soft attention to making well-being pervade through this whole experience of body and mind. But using this whole body with the pleasure and joy born of withdrawal, of seclusion, stepping back from all the compulsions that we either feel internally or that we assume the world and our social contact, social obligations assume they have this stepping our whole being. And it's like a holiday for the heart. It's giving oneself that opportunity, and then it's not just a mental sort of blip on the screen of the mind that goes through. It's bringing it into the body. Mindfulness of the body, mindfulness grounded in the body, awareness that's settled in the body, using the body as a basis of this establishing. There's a solidity to that. There's a firmness and a real, kind of a gravitas to it. It's not just some flit blipping through. It's something that really one deeply experiences, deeply feels, and experiences. And that experience is one that is internalized. So that because we've taken the body as a foundation, used the body as a vehicle, both in terms of contemplation, investigation, a focal point for mindfulness, but also inhabiting the body, embodying the Dhamma, embodying this truth of the way things are, and allowing that experience to become tangible. And so, say as a period of, I've given some kind of reflection or guidance or some pointers, I think we could take the opportunity to sit quietly now and just experiment, let it roll around, explore, investigate. And so when I say investigate, it's again potential investigation, allowing the experience to kind of settle in to our being, become embodied, an embodied experience of the Dhamma. So we can take a few minutes to just sit quietly and just reflect on it, play with it, you know, permeating and pervading, suffusing and filling. Okay, that's a sufficient amount of time. We'll continue with our program.
So I had one more reading here before we do the Q&A, which we're adapting as we go here. And I'll read for maybe 10 minutes, and I had one more excerpt. It was from the Anguttara Nikaya, talking about the Buddha's process of leaving the home life and some of his reflections. This is Anguttara Nikaya, Book of the Threes, Sutta 39. It's called Delicate. Bhikkhus, I was delicately nurtured, most delicately nurtured, extremely delicately nurtured. At my father's residence, lotus ponds were made just for my enjoyment. In one of them, blue lotuses bloomed, in another, red lotuses, and in a third, white lotuses. I used no sandalwood unless it came from Kasi, and my headdress, jacket, lower garment, and upper garment were made of cloth from Kasi. By day and by night, a white canopy was held over me, so that cold and heat, dust, grass, and dew would not settle on me. I had 3 mansions, one for the winter, one for the summer, and one for the rainy season. I spent the 4 months of the rains retreat in the rainy season mansion, being entertained by musicians, none of whom were male, and I did not leave the mansion. While in other people's homes, slaves, workers, and servants are given broken rice together with sour gruel for their meals, in my father's residence they were given choice hill rice, meat, and boiled rice. Amid such splendor and a delicate life, it occurred to me, an uninstructed worldling, though himself subject to old age, not exempt from old age, feels repelled, humiliated, and disgusted when he sees another who is old, overlooking his own situation. Now I too am subject to old age, and am not exempt from old age. Such being the case, if I were to feel repelled, humiliated, and disgusted when seeing another who is old, that would not be proper for me. When I reflected thus, my intoxication with youth was completely abandoned. Again, it occurred to me, an uninstructed worldling, though himself subject to illness, not exempt from illness, feels repelled, humiliated, and disgusted when he sees another who is ill, overlooking his own situation. Now I too am subject to illness, and am not exempt from illness. Such being the case, if I were to feel repelled, humiliated, and disgusted when seeing another who is ill, that would not be proper for me. When I reflected thus, my intoxication with health was completely abandoned. Again, it occurred to me, an uninstructed worldling, though himself subject to death, not exempt from death, feels repelled, humiliated, and disgusted when he sees another who has died, overlooking his own situation. Now I too am subject to death, and am not exempt from death. Such being the case, if I were to feel repelled, humiliated, and disgusted when seeing another who has died, that would not be proper for me. When I reflected thus, my intoxication with life was completely abandoned. There are, bhikkhus, these three kinds of intoxication. What three? Intoxication with youth, intoxication with health, and intoxication with life. An uninstructed worldling, intoxicated with youth, engages in misconduct by body, speech, and mind. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the plane of misery, in a bad destination, in the lower world, in hell. An uninstructed worldling, intoxicated with health, engages in misconduct by body, speech, and mind. With the breakup of the body, engages in misconduct by body, speech, and mind. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the plane of misery, in a bad destination. Intoxicated with youth, a bhikkhu gives up the training and reverts to the lower life. Or intoxicated with health, he gives up the training and reverts to the lower life. Or intoxicated with life, he gives up the training and reverts to the lower life. And it ends with verses. Worldlings subject to illness, old age, and death are disgusted by other people who exist in accordance with their nature. If I were to become disgusted with beings who have such a nature, that would not be proper for me, since I too have the same nature. While I was dwelling thus, having known the state without acquisitions, zeal then arose in me as I clearly saw Nibbana. Now I am incapable of indulging in sensual pleasures. Relying on the spiritual life, never will I turn back. So for me, that sutta is the Buddha talking about the three intoxications, the intoxication with youth, health, and life. It seems like a simple, for me, it's always been kind of an easy distillation of the Buddha talking about mindfulness of the body in those terms, that okay, so at this point, could open it up for questions, and both myself and Luang Por trade off depending on the question. And if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand, do a hand raise by going to, how do you do it? Participants. Is that how you do it? I forgot how to do it.
Yes, Ajahn. That's correct. You won't see it because you're a host.
You could unmute yourself and ask a question.
Does everybody need more instructions on raising your hands? The little blue hands, the Zoom blue hands? Everyone's okay? If not, please say something and then we'll go over it one time. You could just go to the participant. It should be at the bottom of your panel. Right now it says there's 27 participants. If you click on that, it'll open up a panel to the right. And then on the bottom of that, the panel to the right will list like all our participant names. And then on the bottom of that, there should be a raised hands. So if it's not working for you, you could directly message me in chat. All right? Okay, don't be shy. Feel free to raise your hands. Okay, Jeannie, please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I'm wondering if either of the ajahns could elaborate a little bit on the similes in the first sutta that was read, the simile about being so full that Mara can't gain a foothold. I'm wondering what Mara refers to in a practical way in that simile. Thank you.
I could take that. Yeah, that's not such a easy question to answer. I think with those particular similes, Mara is the kilesa Mara, the defilements, greed, hatred, delusion, and Mara not gaining a foothold. So I particularly like the one of like one who doesn't do mindfulness of the body, just like a heavy stone dropped in wet mud. That heavy stone gains an entryway. There's just that the Buddha using those similes or visualizations in order to understand kind of what, you can even use the visualization to understand what Mara means. It's like something coming in from outside, something, disturbances or things that might do harm to one are allowed to come in. So there it could be referring to kilesa Mara, which is the greed, hatred, delusion. There's all these different maras. There's the 5 different maras. There's the kama Mara, which is like the Mara of kama, or of cause and effect of our actions, intentional actions. There's like the Sankara Mara, which is like the thinking mind, the trickster of the thinking mind. The Kanda Mara, which is the 5 khandas, which are based in, there's just the conditioned world, so naturally headed toward dissolution. There's the Kilesa Mara was the first one I said. There's the Mathura Mara, which is Mara as death, so like the death principle. So Mara, Mathura, and the word Mara, they both mean death. So Mathura Mara is like Mara as death itself. There's Devaputta Mara, which is Mara, the actual character, the being, is like the highest, one of the leaders in the highest sense sphere Deva realm, that just below the realms of form. So the highest sensual Deva realm is apparently Mara as a Devaputta Mara, the Mara as a character is depicted in that form. But in terms of Mara gaining a foothold, I would think it's possibly referring to Kila, the identification that can gain a foothold when one isn't immersed in the body, when the mindfulness isn't immersed in the body. So I think that's my opinion. I think that probably the Kilesa Mara would be anything to add to that?
What do you think?
I think maybe in addition to that, just those sense of the how the Buddha's speaking of, and I think especially in terms of mindfulness of the body, there's this sense of fullness and kind of replete, so that there isn't a kind of flailing around and seeking external to oneself, some kind of gratification or some kind of looking to be offended or whatever, so that there's that sense of being replete and full, satisfied, content, and the mindfulness that sense of fullness. So that, to me, that just sort of adding to that image or fleshing it out a little bit. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. That again, that sense of using the body as a foundation and trying to like encourage the mind as well, so that it's able to establish a sense of stability, clarity, balance, and when we using, because they're reflecting each other, and they're because they're influencing each other all the time, and oftentimes it's not very conscious. But by making it more conscious and more clear, then we're able to work a little bit more directly in terms of, okay, taking suggestions and dropping seeds of reflection and contemplation, and that helps to settle the body. But then taking the experience of the body and using it as a mirror to influence the mind, both in terms of help settling or getting more clear of, oh gosh, then because certainly one of the things is a lot of emotions we really experience in the body, and oftentimes it's not like anxiety or fear or worry or desire or irritation. Those are all felt really in different areas of the body, in different ways in our body, they express themselves through the body. And sometimes because our mind runs on its agendas and its preferences, we don't recognize it or don't see it clearly or don't catch it quick enough. So that by tuning into the body, then we can recognize a mental state or an inclination of the mind. So, and similarly, that sense of settling the body, permeating, pervading, so if we say, that influences the mind. The mind then becomes more happy, and then it turns around and gets comfortable within itself, within the body. It's not you're not trying to, because I think that's a kind of a distinction that's a part of kind of Western religion, Western philosophy, like a body-mind separation. And for the Buddha and for his perspective, there's that sense of this whole body-mind complex integrated and clear and liberated, so that it's there's a peacefulness that comes, that sense of getting comfortable within that the influences that go back and forth between the body and the mind, and getting comfortable with that. So then they are reflecting each other and then also influencing each other, and so that learning that more clearly, so that we can give it a direction that's really wholesome and positive, really uplifting. Okay? Anything else?
Yes, it's not really a question, but maybe a tiny bit. So sometimes I imagine I'm royalty.
Yeah.
When I'm sitting, as a way to sort of bring a sense of poise and balance.
Yeah.
Would that be useful?
or a, I mean, there's a sense of, because that's even just some of the words that are used. It's like regal as a word. It's quite, there's a real poise, or there's a real kind of, it's kind of radiating out. It's not collapsing in on itself and getting obsessed. There's that sense of but I mean, words affect us. So then becoming interested in exploring how we can plant seeds that are really skillful for the heart. Oh. I think I'm running out of battery.
This is kind of along the same lines, but
Yeah, it's about the analogy. I mean, it's what kind of what Luang Por was saying. Like, it's this incredible sense of fullness, like being full and fully permeated there with the full water pitcher. The full water pitcher. If the first part of the analogy was, if the water pitcher is full, then it can't take any more liquid from outside. So that was one of the analogies for like Mara getting in. But then the other analogy with the full water pitcher was, if they want to direct their mind in any way and to accomplish like mental attainments, mental wisdom, they can tip the water pitcher just a little bit, and it's already full to the brim. So it's like it'll spill over. So it's in just the same way, the mindfulness of the body fully in the whole body is filled with the mindfulness and awareness. And because it's completely, the mindfulness and awareness completely fills the whole body, then it can be made use of. So all analogies are just that. They're just analogies. They're not. They never perfectly get to the matter. But the Buddha used them because some people can understand things better by using analogies. And what was the second part of the question again? Oh yeah, something about somebody who's old.
If they can't get samadhi, but they have like good...
Oh, they have like dana. Yeah, dana parami.
Is it because they don't have enough energy?
Is it because they don't have enough bodily energy? Yeah. Would you be able to address that one?
Okay, perhaps in terms of the second part of the question, which was around say, if somebody who is old, aged, and they don't have much bodily energy, is that is inability to make the mind peaceful or to gather in samadhi, is that because they don't have enough physical energy. No, not really, but it doesn't have to be. But it's also one of the reasons why you want to be practicing when you're young, because you want to get the skills and the familiarity and that becoming adept at direct or aged and bodily faculties starting to run down. There might not be as much physical energy. That's not an impediment to the mind being able to gather in samadhi and to settle, because really, because samadhi is really it's predicated on a basis of well-being, and there's a kind of relinquishment, so that by relinquishing the kind of hope or expectation that somehow you're going to have enough energy and comfort that you're going to get samadhi, there's no problem. I mean, the mind comes together. It's just so much of the obstacles to samadhi are our expectations or our frustrations or our doubts or our worries. That's the obstacles, and of course that's available to one whether one's young or old. But as one gets older, there might be less physical energy, but there's no. That's not an impediment to the mind becoming settled, still, engaging in that stillness of composure. And to a certain degree, I mean, there's a big advantage to aging. I mean, I find that myself. There might not be as much energy, but I'm just not that interested in seeking distraction or looking for gratification external to myself, and that's one of the biggest factors for samadhi to arise. Is the mind is just not going out looking for distraction or engagement or entanglement or getting upset about something, irritated by something. It's not worth it. Any more questions? Well, I think one of the things there tends to be a lot of assumptions of metta, loving kindness, and I think like Luang Por Chah for many years used to teach about loving kindness and as a primary definition of loving kindness as not dwelling in aversion, and that's really helpful. So that that one is not entangled in aversion. So then that is an expression of loving kindness. So and similarly, when the Buddha talks about, like, there's a chant that we do on the Noble Eightfold on the Noble Eightfold Path, and we're defining each aspect of the path, and the definition of each, like the path factor of right intention, that right intention, right volition, right thought, is say nekama. So thoughts of renunciation, which are, if one puts it into a positive light, it's like the thoughts of generosity, of giving. And then the Abhayagiri Sangha, the thoughts of non-ill will. So the Buddha, and then the last one of thoughts of non-harming. So those are put into a negative definition. But in order to lay a practical foundation, but the expression of that, when it arises or cultivated or developed, is say that, okay, the thoughts of generosity, thoughts of loving kindness, thoughts of compassion, and so that expression of just of non-ill will and non harming, that is your foundation to work from. And then loving kindness doesn't even necessarily mean that you've got to be kind of oozing love for everything around you. That's kind of really makes me sick to my stomach, and that so that sometimes the way we conceive of it can be putting the bar so high that it doesn't neither practical or even desirable really, because there's always got to be a foundation of discernment. And as long as we're not, constantly plotting from our irritation and ill will, then it's it's good enough. So it's there's a good enough clarity there, and that fulfills the definition, and then that in itself is an act of kindness. And first of all, of course, the very first person that you direct loving kindness towards is always yourself. And that sense of looking after oneself with kindness and compassion. Like when we do the one of the chants that we do, the first line, may I abide in well-being. Basically, may I be happy. And it's a really sincere wish, and it's a a recognition that that is a that's a tremendous act of kindness, which then gives one a good foundation for relating to the world with kindness, but you can't take it as an ideal. The Buddha is always trying to get us to bring what is practicable and what is workable, what's doable, what is, and bringing it back to experience, so that just the relinquishing of aversion, ill will, irritation, that is an act of kindness for oneself and for others, because then one's not feeling compelled to act or act on those or impulses of aversion or ill will, which we all have, but it can be held with that sphere of loving kindness, and so that's just trying to make it practical, trying to make it something that works, and also something that fits into the whole, because that's like the qualities of loving kindness and compassion. They don't stand alone. Everything in the Buddhist teachings has a relationship to other aspects of the path, and so that, especially like loving kindness and compassion, that has a very important role to play in the relinquishing of unwholesome mental states and the cultivation of wholesome mental states, helping to relax and settle the body to create a sense of well-being. So, but it's always, the bigger picture is always understanding suffering, understanding dukkha, and experiencing the cessation of dukkha, cessation of suffering. So it's taking it to a bigger picture again, and recognizing that relationship. So if one applies a kind of an ideal standard or an idealization of what you think you should be, there's going to be frustration there. So just that act of kindness, of relinquishing ill will, harming, that will lay us a solid foundation. Okay?
I was hoping his heard me. If there's no more questions, I can always read more Ajahn Chah. It's always fun. Yeah, we've got another 15 minutes till 4:30, and then do a meditation to end.
Karina has a question, and then I would encourage other people to, line up your question is the last Upāsikā day of the year. Karina, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
Well, yeah, this is a good question because that's actually one part of the Satipatthana Sutta is the postures. So it's the mindfulness of posture, and that's very much the daily life mindfulness. And so, like, knowing what you're doing at any given time and knowing the posture and being in touch with the body just through, this is the sati sampajanya, like knowing what you're doing at any given time. So this is just, it seems kind of basic, like just like knowing you're extending or bringing your limbs in or putting or like grabbing something or walking here and there, knowing when you're speaking and keeping silent, knowing whether you're sitting, walking, standing, lying down, just knowing what you're doing at any given time, and knowing that you're breathing. This is just this basic mindfulness of the postures can keep us in that sense of embodied awareness, that sense of embodiment. And because so often it's like getting scattered and we're not centered in ourselves. So everything we're doing, whether we're walking or sitting or whatever we're doing is going to illustrate what kind of full body awareness or sense of embodiment that we have or don't have. And we can illustrate this like, say if you get distracted, for example. So like if I'm just sitting and say like somebody's talking to me, and if I start to say at first maybe I'm listening to them, but then I start to get distracted, it actually has a physical aspect to it. So like I start thinking about something or other, and even though this other person is still talking to me, I'm kind of like just sort of like off, going toward the distraction. And you actually really do get almost physically pulled away from what you're doing. Or like walking, say we have a lot of trails here at Abhayagiri, so walking up to our cabins, it's like noticing the feeling, like not walking too slow or too fast, noticing like what's the energy I'm putting into the walking, what kind of intention am I putting into the walking. And this body mindfulness, it's all for highlighting intentionality, like that'll be sensed in the body as well, that intentionality. So it's for seeing like, am I rushing to get back to my hut, or am I doing everything kind of obsessively slowly, hoping to get some sort of result from that? That's why I like the way like a lot of the ajahns in Thailand, they teach about walking meditation. When you do walking meditation, you go slightly slower than normal, but not like really, really slow. But you do it in a way that is sustainable, that you can get off the walking meditation path and you can still keep that sense of embodied awareness, that sense of mindfulness going. So the mindfulness of postures is very much like body mindfulness in daily life. It can be difficult, like when we're using the computer. So like using the internet, sometimes we get the question like, can you be mindful while using the internet? And usually not. It's pretty difficult. That's not the best time to be cultivating mindfulness. But just to be careful, like to see, it's all for seeing the intentionality, to see like, what are we doing with the computer? What are we doing with the internet? That's a big part of our daily lives these days. If we're going into a Zoom session, Upāsikā day, then we're doing something skillful to learn about Kayagata Sati and the Buddha's teachings. But if we're just trying to like use up time somehow, like we're just bored or just using up the day or doing nothing in particular, but just acting with no particular reason, then looking at that intentionality and saying, oh, well, maybe I could just turn it off and go for a walk or be outside or just sit and check in with the body. What kind of state is the body in right now? What's that sense of needing to distract myself? Like, where does that come from? And what does that feel like in the body if I just sit with that, if I just take 5 minutes and just sit with that? So that's very much like using what we're doing in our daily life for body awareness. Looks like there's a number of hands up now. So please...
Julia, please go ahead.
Thank you. I think Camille was next.
Okay, Camilla, your turn.
Hello. Thank you both. This actually is not related to mindfulness of body, so if I don't know if I should get relegated elsewhere, but I've been thinking about the phrase and sitting with the phrase, for whatever one conceives, it will ever be otherwise. And I was wondering where I could find that in Pali. I've tried online and haven't been able to, but I wanted to see if I could find out just for further meditation.
You were just talking about that. You were talking about that recently.
I would I'm going to take a quick look here. Of course, that's one of the problems with the internet. You get too much information. And I can't, off the top of my head, I can't I mean, I think you'll find it in the Sutta Nipata. And then also in the first discourse of the Buddhas in the Majjhima Nikaya, it's there, and then but I'd have to have more time. It comes up in many places in the suttas. So then there's the Udana. It comes up in the Udana, the Khuddaka Nikaya, and so then where is that? In the first section of the Udana, it comes up.
If one doesn't have the Pali version,
Huh?
if one doesn't have the Pali version, I was looking for the Pali.
Yeah, well, yena himanyati tato tang hoti anyatha. So it's that's the Pali. So yeah, for however one conceives it, it will always be other than that. So it's those are help. I mean, those are good places to start to look, and then a good search engine. So then, but yeah, then one of the problems when you just put it into Google is you get too much information.
Yeah, that was in reference to the intoxication with youth, health, and life. And yeah, that's a very good question. And of course, this doesn't mean you don't look after your health and find ways to look after your health. That's super important to stay healthy. But I think the important part of this is the word intoxication. So like one is like fully intoxicated with youth, intoxicated with health, intoxicated with life. So it's like, if we take like the intoxication with health, it's like getting into one's health to the point where it becomes like a burden and actually becomes counterproductive, where you might actually even get so stressed about being in perfect health or eating just the perfect foods for yourself that stress itself might actually have an adverse health effect on you. And so this can happen a lot. Say like with, I've been in this state as well, like trying to eat just the right foods and being worried about like what's going to affect me in certain ways. Like, oh, if I have too much sugar, I'm going to be like this, and then like worried about if things have sugar in them, or like just whatever, name your health fad, getting really, really into it and thinking like, if I just eat this way, then everything will be okay. But it doesn't mean like we don't look after ourselves. We definitely want to take medicine if we need to, or exercise, or protect ourselves from dog hair allergies or whatever, if you need to get a, whatever would protect you from that animal, whatever animal it is, being in the apartment. And I don't know what the protection from that is, either, getting the animal out, or like getting a mask that doesn't allow the dander in, or whatever, or like the dust in the apartment, you need to find, if it's like choking you out, then of course that's going to be a hindrance to practice. So it's just like finding some sort of solution for that is important, because it's actually a health hazard. So like not being intoxicated with the health doesn't mean like we don't care. We don't care about the health. But it's just like the Buddha was saying, like it was specifically like seeing someone who is very ill, and we can assume like in that story maybe he saw somebody with leprosy or who had soiled themselves or something that was, say, considered disgusting, and he thought it would be inappropriate for me to, say, be humiliated and disgusted by that when I myself could be in that state. So it's this kind of the letting go, the intoxication with youth, health, and life. A lot of it is like empathy, like the Buddha's actually empathizing or the prince before he was the Buddha, and in his process of becoming a Buddha, he's actually seeing like an old person and empathizing with that and applying it to himself. Or he's seeing a sick person and empathizing with that and applying it to himself, like I could be in that state. Or a dead person and empathizing with that and actually saying like, I'm not exempt from that fate as well. And so then there wasn't this sense of like, when I think of intoxication, that sense of intoxication is like there's a delusion that it's going to last as well. So like that my youth is going to last, that my health is going to last, that my life is going to last. So like that's more the sense of like the kind of diluted intoxication with those things. And so when we let go of those intoxications, that's sobriety. That's an intense sobriety that we're seeking through the practice. But within that, when things come up, we do what we can. We use medicine when we can. We try to ameliorate situations when we can that adversely affect our health. But then, if there's nothing we can do, then we investigate. We let go. If there's absolutely nothing we can do, then certainly worrying about it is only going to exacerbate the situation. So if there's nothing we can do, we have to deal with it through patient endurance or mentally the best way we can. But like in your situation, there's probably some sort of creative solution, I would think, clean the furnace or something like that. But it certainly doesn't mean we don't look after ourselves or we neglect ourselves. It's always good to do the exercise, do the qigong, do the yoga, eat healthy and everything, but without that sense of intoxication.
Thank you.
I think for this end period, just doing another 15 minutes of meditation and just investigating, consolidating in our minds whatever we've learned during this time, and at the end of that period, I'll just start with a chant, and it'll be on page 37 of Book 1, if you are familiar. It's the Buddha's Words on Loving Kindness. So after this period of meditation, I'll just go into that chant, and that'll conclude the session.
unseen.